I honestly wonder if they're just thinking about if they just want to run out the clock in terms of Trump dying. I honestly wonder that because I don't.
Well, I don't know, man, because he's coming across. He comes across more Sprite.
They're not going to move on until these people will not be free of this guy's influence
until he pulls a Jonestown on them. I mean, what's it gonna take? Although I gotta tell you, I mean, if you stand him up next to Joe Biden, Jesus Christ, Joe Biden looks like he's on life support. What's going on with this guy? Like,
Trump's just more charismatic. I think they're both.
They're both absolutely delusional, and I think that they're both actually a little too old for this job. And quite frankly, you both have done it already, so why don't you just be a gentleman and pass the baton? Having said that, because people who even run for this, I think, are egomaniacs and borderline narcissistic personalities anyway, so why would they do that? But we need some fresh blood. We need people who are of the time that we are in, so that they have one foot in the world we're going to and one foot in the world that we're coming from. And it'll be very interesting to see who the Democrats are going to wheel out to try to, face the competition. I mean, do you think that who do you think would be a front runner at this point? Bernie Sanders, I think, is exhausted of this process.
Jesus fucking Christ. Dude, if I got to hear one more Bernie thing, bruh, I think it's going to come down to Elizabeth Warren, who is going to be like 75 or 76 if she runs for president.
She's Sprite though, man. She's got spunk.
Yeah, she's more charismatic. That's the thing. If you're old but you're charismatic, people don't care about your age as much.
True.
If you're old,
if you don't act old
and you're quiet and you're hunched up, if you act old, then it's different. Right. I think it's going to come down to her and Pete. I don't think these white progressives are going to rally around Kamala. I don't think
women aren't. Certainly, we learned that lesson.
Women will. I think it'll be black folks trying to push Kamala through, and I just don't think these white progressives are gonna give a fuck about it.
I don't think she's gonna get enough of the black vote, to tell you the truth. I think she came across a bit controversial as Attorney General in California, and I think she left a bad taste in the mouth of some demographics of the black community. So I don't think she's a shoo-in.
Separate combo about that too.
Yeah. So I think
that has been debunked.
Some of that has been debunked. However, I don't know. We can check the data on it. I don't know did she get more or less of the vote than Obama did from the black community?
Oh, in terms of the primary?
Yeah.
Obama got way more.
Okay. I mean, obviously they were voting for Biden per se, but I mean, a large part of the population voting for Biden was because of Kamala. But what's concerning is that she was the first Democratic candidate who had to bow out of the presidential election because she was polling so badly. So if it comes down to a ticket of like her against DeSantis, I think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think she stands a chance. She's not, unless she nails down 80% of the African-American vote, there's no way for her to do it. She's not nailing down even 50% of the female vote.
Yeah, I think it's Pete.
He's too young. And there's sections of the country that's just not going to vote for a gay man.
He's around Obama's age when Obama won in 2008.
Yeah, but he's gay, and we are in a very anti-gay climate right now.
Okay, yeah, it depends on what he has to say about trans issues. He's going to essentially have to come out and scream "fuck trans people" in order to win in a general election. But if we're talking about the primary, I think he'll win a Democratic primary.
I think he could win a primary, but I don't think he could win against a Republican candidate. Not of the likes if it's going to be a Josh Hawley or DeSantis kind of person. And it's because of the traditionalists, the ones who just won't co-sign gay marriage.
Right.
Or gay families.
Yeah. It really
which is distasteful.
Yeah, it's very distasteful. And I really think it depends on his policy position when it comes to stuff beyond gay marriage, because I think the majority of people are totally fine with gay marriage at this point. However, obviously there's 30% of the country is never going to be okay with that, but it comes down to everything else, because they will try to paint him as somebody who wants your 5-year-old to be able to start taking hormone therapy and cut their penis off because they like pink and wanted to put on a dress one day. You know what I mean?
Look what's happening in Florida. Look what's happening in Florida. They actually are passing a legislature that says don't say gay. I mean, that is straight up apartheid against the LGBT community. I mean, we act like apartheid is something that happened, 50 years ago in South Africa. And I'm like, apartheid is exactly what happened here. We just called it segregation and Jim Crow. I mean, it's the same word in apartheid. Apartheid is just the Afrikaner word for it. it translates to segregation.
Thank you.
So I find it bizarre that we try to hold this moral high ground on one instance, and in the other instance, we're doing exactly what it is that we had the whole world divest from South Africa for. But, for me, it also comes down to which presidential candidate is most related to the other presidents. Because, I think that most of the presidents, anybody who gets that job has to be related or part of the presidential bloodline. And the reason I think that is because according to things I read, things I have seen people lecture about, my understanding, broad strokes, we can totally do a whole chat on this one night, but all the presidents have to be a descendant of someone who came over from England. And so far, the majority of them are all descendants of King John of England. Several of the presidents are Mayflower descendants, specifically. That would include the Bush family and FDR. We've had multiple presidents who are related to each other, either father and son or grandfather and grandson.
Yeah, Obama and Cheney were cousins, distant cousins.
Distant cousins. John and John Quincy Adams, father and son presidents, right? George W. Bush, father and son presidents. Grandfather, William Harrison. Grandson, Benjamin Harrison, 22nd president. And let's not forget that President Madison, 4th president, Zach Taylor, 12th president, James Polk, 11th president, are all descendants of James Taylor, who is one of the Virginia settlers. From the James Taylor line also comes Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, wow.
And you mentioned LBJ. Interestingly, all of the presidents, I think for the most part, are related except one, and it's Martin Van Buren, because he was not of British descent. He was of Dutch descent. Right. Everybody, a lot of people would name Obama, but let's not forget Obama has a white side of the family, and that white side of the family makes him 4th cousin, 3 times removed from Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, wow.
Who is a descendant of Philip Ahmet, who is a soldier in the Revolutionary War. So those are some of the contributing factors as to why I believe in order to be president, you have to come from a bloodline that can be traced to a very limited group of people.
It wouldn't surprise me if these private, consulting companies, these law firms that they hire to do like a super extensive background check on you, it's either explicitly or implicitly understood that part of the background check when they're, looking for candidates and they're vetting people that they think maybe should run for president, part of that vetting process is bloodlines. And it's not going to be in the contractual agreement when we're telling you go look into this person, but it's part of it. It's like, oh yeah, and they come from a good family, wink.
Right. Good family means bloodline. And let's not forget, there are maternal bloodlines that have led to presidents too. I mean, Lyndon Johnson's wife, I believe, is a cousin of his as well. So there are bloodlines of presidents who are born who came from their mother's side of the family, but because of marriage, you don't necessarily connect their names.
Oh yeah, and then Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt was like 2nd or 3rd cousins with FDR.
Yeah. And there's a few people in the bloodline that FDR is related to. FDR and his cousin are not as closely related as we think they are. They just happen to live closer in the same time period, but they're not more related than other people in the lineage of FDR, the presidential line.
Teddy Roosevelt?
Yes. Yeah. They're not first cousins. They are a few cousins apart, but still all part of a lineage of people who hailed from England, most of whom came from King John.
Interesting. Especially, the first 150 years or so of this country, it definitely doesn't surprise me because still relevant today, but even more so back then, there was a super Northeastern bias and obviously an Ivy League bias. And we still very much have that today. And back then, you didn't have to be smart to get into Harvard or Yale. Your dad went.
No, you needed to be white, male, rich, and a landowner. Yeah. Which is how you had rights to anything at all. I mean, that is part of why whiteness became so important in the United States, because it distinguished you it automatically gave you the appearance. You're already being marketed as someone of wealth and of a good family line, because in order to be in these colleges or to own land or to vote or run for office, you had to be a white male anyway. So that's what part of the reason that whiteness is so important to this day, right? It's associated with privilege. So we'll see who the candidates are. You think Yang will run again? He started a third party, by the way. He started his own party called the Forward Party.
strikes me as a perennial candidate. He strikes me as someone who's just going to run every 4 years for the attention and for the money. And he'll gladly accept your campaign donations. He'll gladly be booked on your podcast, on your TV show to contribute. You know what I mean? And he'll put out a book right before he does a campaign every year.
Yeah.
And this is just the new this is just his new thing.
Yeah. And he does speak on a lot of different types of networks. Like he talks to a lot of different types of people. He doesn't limit himself to a certain side. I mean, I don't even really think he's that much of a Democrat. To me, he more leans into libertarian, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think he's a left-wing libertarian. He's a libertarian on some things, but then at the same time, he also wants like UBI and
right. But he's even willing to, but he's going to change on that. I don't think he's going to come out and still go with the tagline of everybody gets 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever his number is. I think he's going to evolve on that because for some reason it's not landing well. People like the idea of it, but for some reason the way it's being marketed isn't landing well. It's sort of like defund the police. Like people who are willing to give it a think for a minute understood what people meant, but the wording of it didn't land well. So it killed the entire messaging of it.